introduce Anurag. So he is the Global Insights and Business Intelligence Lead at Kimberly Clark, and he's recently joined Kimberly Clark. But before that, when I first started talking with him about this session, he was in Galderma, I think, that time. And previous to that, he has been working for 14 years in J&J, Nielsen, P&G, Unilever. And so he's bringing in a lot of wealth of expertise in healthcare and consumer packaged good industries. He has been providing strategic insights and analytics to drive business growth and brand equity improvement, and that's what he is going to also talk about in during this session. So thanks, Anurag, for doing this, and over to you. Please feel free to share your screen as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Sanchita. And I have to say congratulations on running such an excellent platform and series of events. I think it's fantastic to have some sort of an outside in point of view and share it with the broader community as well. So I really appreciate the opportunity as well to connect with the broader Lazada community as well as all the other members who've joined through Zoom. Let me share my screen one second. Okay. All right, so just checking if you are able to see my screen and it's not in the presentation mode.
No, it's perfect. Yeah.
It's fine. Okay. Fantastic. So brand love. In a world that is really obsessed right now with artificial intelligence and machine learning and natural language processing, the question is, where does the good old branding fundamentals sit? And are we paying enough attention to brand love? According to me, it's a very simple topic that is seasonally overused in presentations, but it's often less understood in our marketing world, right? And a lot of us here are in consumer insights or market research, and most of us, we run brand tracks and we measure a statement. It's called is a brand I love. So the question is, keep your hand to your heart and tell me, how many of us are really trying to make our brand the most lovable brand out there? I can bet that we're not really putting in an active effort to improve the overall brand love. And that is what I'm here to talk about. Beyond AIs and mythologies, why brand love really matters. Let's start with a very simple activity, right? Okay, let me show you this. So when you see a dog or a cat, what emotions do you feel? You can type it in the chat group, or you just think about what comes to your mind when you are scrolling through your Instagram feed. Have you ever wondered, why do you feel so calm or at peace when you are looking at pictures of dogs or cats or any other pet for that matter? There's a scientific reason behind it, and that is because dog and cat or any other pet picture for that matter makes us smile and bring out an emotion of love, because they are creatures that are loyal and trusting of humans. And trust contributes to brand love for the same biological reason as interpersonal love. So the chemicals associated with love between living beings are in fact the same chemicals which are affected when people trust brands and organizations and companies. So it's not really a topic that is very complicated. It's something that we experience on a daily basis. Sanchita has already done an introduction of myself, but one thing that I want to call out is that in the last 15 years that I've been in this industry, I've had the privilege of serving some of the most loved brands in the industry. whether it's currently in my role as the head of insights and analytics for APAC BCC, Kimberly Clark, where I work on the brand called Huggies, as well as Sweetie and Green Fingers in Korea, or in the past when I worked on Cetaphil or Listerine or Johnson's Baby and so on. One thing that is really common is that these are brands that have been there for several decades in the market, and these are brands that are loved by our consumers. So if I could just briefly talk about my experience right now at Kimberly Clark, I've been there only for 3 months, but of what I've understood about business, um, for more than 5 decades, Huggies has been part of the parenting journey, right? In fact, fun fact, the first diaper that Kimberly Clark had produced was actually called Kimby's in the year 1968. And since then, there has been innovation that has helped generations of babies to stay clean and healthy, right? Um, if I could draw your attention towards this example, I picked up a consumer review coming out of Amazon US. Okay, so here's Andrew Scholar, who's been using Huggies for the last 3 years and has been satisfied. And I promise this is not a sales pitch, right? But if I could drive your attention towards the part that is highlighted in yellow, it says they aren't cheap, and it's going to be great when I don't have to buy these anymore. But until that day, I firmly believe you get what you pay for, and these are worth the extra cost. They will keep in a lot of bodily fluid before they start to break down, and it's worth every penny to see that kiddo happy. Now, if you could just read the emotions behind this statement, right? Like there are a lot of characteristics in this particular review. It is showing the trust of that father who's been using this brand for the last 3 years. It is showing the loyalty because he's so satisfied, and he's also encouraging others to buy the product. So it's also about advocacy. And those three things essentially form the dictionary definition of brand love. Brand love describes a concept that goes beyond typical brand management, creating loyalty beyond reasons. It refers to a strong emotional connection that consumers have with any particular brand, right? It's characterized by the feelings of trust, loyalty, and willingness to advocate for the brand. And it is something that has proven that brand love actually pays off. There are several studies which have been conducted by likes of Forbes and McKinsey, which show that compared to light brands, brand loyalty, willingness to pay a price premium, and positive advocacy or word of mouth are significantly higher for love brands. 86% spend more on a brand they love. And the logic is very simple. Consumers who have a strong emotional connection with the brand are more likely to purchase products or services from that brand, even if they are expensive or less convenient than the alternatives. And I'm sure when you think about your life as well, there would be certain products that you would be buying, even going out of the way, or even when those products actually become expensive because of inflation. And to give you an example, um, we were doing consumer work some time back for brand love when I was at Galderma, and we were trying to seek inspiration from consumers. And one respondent said, "I really think of Diet Coke as my boyfriend." So I really like this example because it showcases the level of intimacy where that consumer would be feeling so connected to the brand, and how the role that the brand would be playing in that respondents or that consumer's daily life. Now, sitting in the audience, you could be thinking that, hey, you know what? Coke is cool. They have some really nice campaigns. It's a fun category to be in. It's a very involved category, and maybe when it comes to our businesses, whether you are in the business of selling a product or you're in, let's say, market research industry, right? It's not as cool. So is brand love for everyone? And the answer is an absolute yes. So here I'm showing you two examples. One is from P&G brand Fairy. So it actually features as one of the top 10 most loved brands in the UK. And think about it, right? Like, it's just a dishwashing liquid and it's a very, very functional category. But Fairy is standing shoulder to shoulder to other beauty and tech brands to be in that top 10 list. Likewise, when it comes to insurance, um, think of your reaction when the last time somebody like a financial advisor reached out to you or approached you in a shopping mall. You were probably trying to, escape that person. But AIA has been delighting consumers in Southeast Asia. So it's not specific to any category. It's not specific to any brand. Brand love is in fact for everyone. So talking about the overall journey in terms of brand love, how does it come into existence? And if you think of um, the evolution, it doesn't happen overnight, right? And we ourselves as marketeers have seen it evolve. So at first the goal was some way to drive satisfaction, right? If your respondents or if your consumers are satisfied with your products, then there would be a repeat. But satisfaction in today's day and age is tied to expectations. It's a form of table stake. So then after satisfaction, brands started chasing loyalty. It's easier to sell to existing customers than to any new ones, right? The overall spends of getting new consumers into the portfolio is significantly higher. So loyal consumers spend more and more valuable overall to the bottom line. But then, if you think of the last decade or so, everything really changed. With Gen Z coming in, there's competition, there's omni-channel retailing, social media, the whole purchase journey is evolving, and in a way, consumers began interacting with brands like they interact with people. It became very transactional. It became more and more difficult to pinpoint why consumers are loyal to a certain brand and what that looks like. Traditional satisfaction and loyalty metrics were just not enough anymore. And that really brings us to the brand love in today's day and age, which is loyalty 2.0. So to represent this, I'm picking up this curve from the book and publications from beloved brands. So what this says is that similar to the curve that we have from awareness to consideration to purchase, brand love also goes through a bit of a journey. So in the beginning, when you are a new brand, you are in that unknown or that unfamiliar territory. Your job there is to get noticed. So consumers see your brand in the crowd, right? Then you want that differentiation. You want to be indifferent, establish brand positioning in the consumer's mind. Then it's about liking, build that trust, followed with, you know, every purchase that the consumer has, you're slowly building the trust that, okay, this is a brand or this is a product that has been consistently delivering. And then comes love, where you try and tighten those bonds with your most loyal consumers. And a lot of us actually think that is it. That's where we typically stop. But brand love goes beyond that. So there is a journey which takes us from loved to beloved, right? And that is when you are trying to deliver the most exceptional experiences to inspire your fans, to to be your brand advocate, to influence your their friends and relatives to start coming into the portfolio. That is what we as marketeers have to aspire for. We no longer can be satisfied with overall trust and satisfaction. We need to have that level of advocacy as well. So all of this kind of talks about the importance of brand love and where it sits today in the world of marketing, right? I also want to share with you a little bit around what we as marketeers can do, and especially in the domain of consumer insights and market research, what can we do to drive brand love for the brands that we are working for? So the first thing that I'll say is something that I've learned over a period of time is a program called SIP. And SIP is similar to, what you would know from the financial industry, which is systematic investment plan. It is about systematic insights plan, where you are slowly and gradually building your insights bank. So the program essentially means it creates a platform for anyone and everyone in your organization to come together, irrespective of the function or the department they are in, right? And let them come and ask you questions about the consumers, or let them share ideas. And as you run your SIP programs, whether it's through consumer surveys or whether it's you through secondary research, you start exploring those questions, whether through qualitatively or quantitatively or social listening. Start exploring those questions to think of how can you in the market research or in the marketing team prepare for both the short term with short term innovations, but also from long term needs point of view of what consumer really wants. And the program essentially is based on the principles of love. So here I am trying to decode love as in LOVE for you in 4 different steps. The first one is about addressal. Listen to address. Second one is about really identifying the opportunities out there. Third one is about values and purposes. And the last one is about emotional association. So whatever you are doing in terms of driving the brand love, at some point you have to make sure that you're sufficient on all of these principles. So going into the first one, which is listen to address. I think it's a very interesting one, because we always think of who's really talking about my product, and are people excited about my product. But as shoppers, consumers exert more cognitive attention and effort on negative reviews than on positive ones. And negative information is more valuable than positive information when making a judgment, right? Specifically when a consumer uses a comments from others to avoid any possible risks or bad judgment that they might take. So when you think of a chain, right, no matter how strong of a metal it is made of, but one weak link is enough to break that change. And that is why we have to make sure that we are listening to address the needs of the consumers and the gaps that are out there. And with this, I also want to clarify one point. A lot of times we think of social listening, right? Listening is social listening, and um, we say that, hey, I'm subscribed to a certain platform, I have that dashboard and I see positive reviews, and I have positive sentiments and negative sentiments, and my rating is this much. A lot of times we just look at things above the surface. What we need to do is move from that social monitoring to social listening. So the opportunity for us is to double click on why we are getting those positive or negative sentiments, or why our ratings are such, and go deeper to try and understand what are consumers really saying about the brand. So it's more qualitative in nature, where we find the real opportunities for us as a business to really improve on. The second one is to identify the opportunities. And here I want to introduce you to this framework, which is about knowing what you know or what you don't know. And this is really coming from Danning and Kruger theory. It's an effect that was first described by psychologists David Danning and Justin Kruger. So it's a type of cognitive bias that causes people to feel confident that they have greater knowledge or competence in an area that then they actually do. So to break it down and to show it to you a little bit more simply, here's a simple grade, right? The first one is, if you read it from top left, left and top. So what we know, that we know. Now, a lot of times we think those are facts. And all of us here, whether it's on this forum or on our businesses, we would have like 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience. And we think that what we know, that we know are facts. But sometimes it could be just arrogance, experience induced arrogance. What we think are facts could be just assumptions. Those are assumptions until validated, right? So we need to make sure, with the way the environment is changing, the trade and consumer shopping behavior is changing, we need to make sure that everything gets validated. The second one is what we don't know, that we know. That, according to me, is tacit knowledge, right? It's good to recover that. Then is what we know that we do not know. Typically, 99% of times, whenever we launch a campaign, or whenever we are doing a new piece of consumer work, this is what we are after. What we know that we don't know. Everything has a certain objective and a brief, and we are trying to identify how do we fill those gaps, right? But I think we need to go beyond this, and we need to look for more possibilities that lead to discoveries, to say we are on the quest of identifying what we don't know that we do not, right? If you are doing any consumer work, if you're doing any qualitatives, keep an open mind and listen to what consumers are saying. It's not just about getting those answers to the questions. It's more about listening to what consumers, the expressions that consumers have, the way, the occasions during which consumers use your products, and that leads to discoveries. The third one is about brand values and purpose. And brand love sits where passion meets purpose. And passion comes from knowing why you do what you do. Your values or purpose should consume, should energize and fuel and push you, right? It describes how the world will be different or better because your brand exists. If we are not able to demonstrate that value or purpose, for the consumers, brand A and brand B would be very similar. And the last one is, backed by those values, creating emotional associations. So brands too often become trapped around being known for good things and being known for things that are different, and we start battling each other for differentiation, often rationally, of course. But consumer insights are those little secrets which are hidden underneath, and we need to understand the underlying behaviors, the motivations, pain points, and emotions of our consumers. We need to look beneath the surface and need to break out to find a more emotional territory where the brand becomes something people care about, they would love and identify themselves with. So with that stated as the principles of love, LOVE, listen, identify opportunities, the values, as well as the emotions. Next, I'm just going to share very briefly with you a few techniques that I have been using personally, whether it was during my time at Galderma or now at KC. And one thing that I want to say is that in the beginning, I mentioned that in a world that is obsessed by AI and machine learning, I'm not trying to undermine the importance of AI or NLPs or machine learnings. What I want to say is that these new techniques or tools with AI and machine learning, they're all means to an end, and that end being brand love. So in the next few examples that I'm going to share with you, they embrace a lot of these tools through AI or machine learnings, as well as our good old traditional research methodologies. So the first one is social listening. And as I said, this goes really beyond the social monitoring, right? It's more about listening. And similar to your brand track funnel, what you can do is pick up everything that you're getting from your social listening exercise and put it in this sort of a process or a journey, where the first thing is identifying insights to align buyer's intent with the right messaging. That's how you build connections with your consumers. Second is to drive consideration. How would you drive consideration? Identify the pain points that your customers face to make sure that the purchase journey or the purchase decision is becoming easier, right? Once you know what they're looking for, then you are able to drive that. Then it's about conversion. Detect any negative and positive hotspots in real time. Um, the good thing about these tools is that everything that's happening out there, the moment the consumer reacts to a product, whether it's through a review or a rating or on a blog, you can listen to it immediately, right? So you can drive that conversion. And the last thing is, once you've gotten the consumer into your appetite, right, or into your business, then it's about driving that continuation. Deliver to them the ideal post-purchase experience, reciprocate the love, and give them the support and the communication that they require. And I think a lot of our brands are already doing it. Like when you think of that pop-up that you get from Netflix, hey, you enjoyed watching this, here are some recommendations. That means that, somewhere the brand really understands you as a consumer or as a user, and they are here to delight you with a better experience. Next one is, even with traditional methodologies and looking into qualitatives, one of the things that you can do to drive brand love in a much better way is to do this exercise of your universe. Design your solar system of your favorite brands with you at the center. What all brands do you see there? How close, how connected do you feel to your brands, and why do you feel so connected to those brands? Once consumers start articulating brands that they are close to, then you understand the right nuances to drive and how that particular brand has gone through that journey of driving that connection. Or even, further more exercises around what we call on the palm. Imagine you have to write down the communication or the idea. What do consumers really remember, or can they really write down the whole idea in a way that is delivering them a 360 experience? Or it's about future gaze. Is that idea or that communication or that product purposeful enough, or are there right values that would keep them to that would keep it more relevant for their kids as well in years to come, of course with the right innovations in place, right? But do they see this to be a brand for generations to come? um, we also have quantitative pieces around it. So in your brand track that you do, whether it's with any agency out there, right? Typically, what we ask is awareness, conversion, and purchase. But I think it has to include a little bit more. It has to go from awareness to preference to trust to advocacy and to brand love. And there are, a lot of other agencies out there who've been doing quantitative research around how to ask the right questions for brand love. So the funnel that we typically look at has to go a little bit more deeper beyond just purchase to see where does trust sit, where does advocacy sit, and where does brand love sit for your brands. And of course, then you can start breaking it down with, whether you call it a seed, expand, accelerate model, or you call it an emerging growth developed model, or whatever is the lingo in your particular organization. Then comes e-commerce. So for e-commerce, typically you can track your content, your assortment, ratings and reviews, and search. We call it cars. It could be some other acronym in your organization. But the point here is that a study which was conducted by Nielsen on brand advocacy found that online customer reviews and recommendations from friends and family members were the most trusted forms of advertising. In addition, the same study also found that 92% of consumers trusted recommendations from people they know, and 70% trust consumers' opinion posted online. So that really goes to show the importance of this piece around ratings and reviews. And if I could just double click on this, and this is probably my last few slides. So if I could double click on this, when you think of ratings and reviews, you can also systematically analyze those ratings and reviews by breaking it down to see where the opportunities are for your business. Whether it's on the brand side, am I struggling with brand equity issues, or is it on the product? And the way we would, in the world of diapers for Huggies, the way we would look at it would be, is it around the experience? Is it around the quality? If around quality, is it about the thickness of the product? Is it about the tape? Is it about leakage? Is it about rashes? Is it about allergy? So really taking those reviews and going deeper to try and understand where the opportunity for our business really lies. Or is it about the third domain, which is around retailer experience, which will look into delivery or pricing or packaging, etc. So once you start clustering or looking into this kind of framework, you will start seeing themes coming out for improvements in your overall experience that you're delivering to your consumers, whether it's through brand, through product, or through retail. Ultimately, you realize that once your brand is loved, you have more and more brand advocates, and the more advocates you have, the fewer ads you have to buy. So it's a win-win for everyone. Um, but by saying all of this, I also want to qualify this by saying that you're not pizza. You can't make everyone happy. So it's also very important to be focused on making sure you're doing what is right for your target group. You have decoded your target group to the finest detail in terms of the experiences that they're looking for, the needs that they have, and the products that they really want. At the end, you might see some consumers who are still not satisfied, but it's more important to get this right for your target group. That's all I have to share with you today. I'm happy to take any questions from the audience.
Thanks, Anurag. We don't have any questions in the chat, I think, as of now. So, but if any of you have any questions, please feel free to just raise your hand or just unmute and ask questions. We have some comments though, which are nice, especially from Divya. Uh, If you can read those comments, you'll see what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from anyone? Let me also check the live streaming if there's any questions over there. Yeah, just quickly, let me go and check that. Yeah. In the meantime, if you have any of you have any questions, please unmute and ask.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, hi, I'm Chui from Malaysia. So I just curious, right? So you mentioned quite numbers of the process and all those. Have you come across any brand that failed? And what was the reasons behind that
Sorry, I
causing
lost.
the can you
I
hear me?
couldn't hear you.
Okay.
Maybe if you could repeat. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you come across any brands, especially those who've been there for for many years, that it's been reputable, but it failed? And what are the reasons, factors that causing it?
Sorry, I think your voice is breaking a little bit, Shireen. You
Oh,
said that are there any brands that have been there for many years, but I lost after that.
okay. But the brands fail, Fail, fails.
Okay.
So what are the reasons and factors behind that the reputable brand fails? Can you share
I
your
think
thought? Yeah.
yeah, I think I can probably share this based on personal experience as well, and working on some of the brands, without naming them, of course. But I think what's interesting is, look, I think we often feel like we've cracked it all. Okay, if you think of how our industry has really evolved and how consumer shopping habits have really evolved in case of e-commerce, for example. Now, traditionally, everything was really sold in brick and mortar, right? And if you think of China, there are brands which really dominated the market. But when e-commerce really started, brands thought that, okay, I am the market leader in brick and mortar. I don't need to really worry about e-commerce. By the time they started worrying about e-commerce, they realized that they don't even have the right portfolio to drive in e-commerce, because e-commerce really requires a very different form of communication, different exclusivity, because there are seasons associated with whatever you're trying to sell, etc. So a traditional portfolio which is more fit for on shelf might not be really as fit for e-commerce. Plus, the pace of innovation required to really be as successful is also very different. So I think I won't say that brands have failed in entirety, but it's also about trying to be on top of the trends that we are seeing out there and being prepared for some of those trends. You know, um, likewise in terms of, I can give you an example during my time at Listerine. So we were working on during your Double 11 festivals. There's always this quest of getting the right flavor, and we were doing research to understand what would be the right Listerine flavor to be launched this Double 11. Because I remember the research that time going around cherry flavor or a guava flavor, and imagine a guava flavor for a mouthwash, right? So it is very interesting, but it's also about identifying what your consumers are really looking for. And that is the effort that is required to stay competitive. If you're not doing this, then of course you're failing your consumers' expectations. So you might not be failing in its entirety as a global brand, but in pockets which are advancing very fast, we might be seen as not the ideal brands fitting consumers' expectations.
Okay, thanks, Anurag, right? So I'm just curious, for example, like Nokia brand
Mhm.
is used to be, famous, for in terms of mobile, right, for many, many years. But because it didn't catch up with the latest technology, especially, in the smartphone and era. So it become disappearing, right? So among the consumers and all those. So in this case, right? So how will you view this? Like, for example, in this case, even like Motorola, BlackBerry, all those, the brand are still there, but you feel, to be keep up to the trend, right? Among the consumers, the expectations, right?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the tech space, but I'm probably going to give you a response that makes more sense to me, right? Like, I think it's more about, I don't think it is in that case, it's about innovation. Of course, they were late to the party, and as Apple and Samsung started innovating, it kind of ate into the whole share of the traditional brands that were out there. But I think it was also a little bit about the brand equity and coming across as a very modern brand, a brand that associated with the youth and with the coming generation, which is what some of the phones that we hold today, they did right, like with the Apples and the Samsungs of the world. They connected well with what consumers were really looking for. So again, if you go back to the principles of love, I think it's also about getting the right insights from consumers on once the first iPhone was developed, and every iPhone we feel like, hey, what can be better? But they come up with new features which delight everyone, right? So I think it's about connecting with the audience, knowing who your right TG is and how to delight them. That's where I feel like some of the traditional brands, which were extremely probably product focused, but not so much on the overall brand image and equity, they fear. But I'm sure there's a more sound explanation to some of the downfall that some of these brands have had.
Yeah, thanks. Can I ask the last one more question? I hope I don't
Absolutely.
dominate. Okay. With with the trend of most of the companies are looking into AI, right? Artificial intelligence. So how does AI impact brand and also, market research?
I think it's a great question, by the way. So I do think that it our expectations, right? Our expectations with AI suddenly have been like, oh, now there is AI and I'll have all my answers. I don't think that's the case. In about maybe a decade ago, there was a word that we all used was agile. I want something which is very agile. I want something which is very quick. And now in today's context, there's not even one brief that goes without AI, right? So can you use some AI tools to give me that? I think it's also about being very smart around using AI and machine learning to get some of the quick answers. So we really don't have to wait for a very long period to get what consumers are saying. Like I was talking about ratings and reviews. Now, you could reach out to a research partner who could take on everything that is there from Amazon and absorb that, use machine learning or the AI tools that they have, and then they can, first of all, tell you where the opportunities are. What are the category drivers? What are the brand drivers? How does brand A differ versus brand B? What are the drivers versus barriers? But they can also tell you based on AI what are the trends that you're likely to see, or what is a dominating trend versus an emerging trend, and how consumers are interacting with the portfolio. You can also use this to kind of interpret seasonality within e-commerce. So I think AI has now been embraced in almost everything that we are seeing within the digital world. It's just about asking the right questions with those tools. It might not give you the complete answer, but I think it can give you a good head start versus going through the traditional primary research methodology.
Hey, great. So which means it can help us to expedite our kind of work, but of course, it's still you need to use our human intelligence to decipher and interpret and make the
Absolutely.
decisions, right? Okay, thank
Absolutely.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Anurag. We have a question here, I think, from Divya. Divya, would you like to just ask the question yourself because you're on the call.
Yeah, sure, I can. So the point, Anurag, was about, you mentioned about when passion meets purpose, you get to brand love. I'm not sure if I have phrased it correctly. I may have taken some liberties there. But, we've been seeing a lot of communication around brand purpose. Big brands, really, right? Like Pepsi and the Kendall Jenner ad, which they had to pull out. Nike leveraged Colin Kaepernick, and they did. They actually were able to do something with that association. What is your point of view on brand purpose that goes beyond what the consumer actually expects the brand to do for them? Now, in your case, for example, in Huggies, and that example that you shared of this gentleman who clearly did show love for the brand and his willingness to pay extra, not just willingness to pay, the price of the brand, but willingness to pay more because that brand does so much for his child, and the child is so satisfied. So in that context, you understand brand love. But when you have to take that and expand it to brand purpose, the way we understand purpose, or the way it is talked about today in the markets, in marketing, in the advertising world, etc., what is your view on that? Because I find the whole Pepsi and Nike example, I mean, Nike perhaps was a little lucky and Pepsi was terribly unlucky, perhaps, is my view. I just wanted to hear from you on that.
I am still in the camp of purpose being very, very important. I feel like it is about whenever you and this is how I see it personally. If you're buying something, you associate with the product. Of course, it's got some functional benefits, whether it's a pair of sunglasses or a soft drink. But at some point, beyond just functional attributes, you are associating with the identity that the brand has created, and whether you talked about Nike for that example, and we saw the movie which was recently on Netflix around the Nike Jordans. Now that was really so much about not just shoes or not just selling shoes, but that was about creating a next generation of athletes and inspiring those athletes. So a lot of people actually associate with the entire story that the brand is trying to sell. And I think that is where purpose really stems out from, right? Like, what does the brand really stand for? So I feel like in some cases, we might be just looking at functional satisfaction, but beyond that, we are really as individuals associated to that brand's identity, and that is why the purpose really becomes important. I have seen my friends argue that, hey, why did you buy a mineral water bottle from brand A and not brand B? And there's no reason. A mineral water is just pure drinking water, right? But there is a certain association that we as individuals drive with a certain brand identity. If the same water bottle is coming from two different brands, one is a global brand, other is a local brand at the same price, which one would you buy? You're buying that global brand, one, because of the trust, but at the same time, you associate with that brand. So I think this is where purpose kind of becomes very, very important, according to me.
Right. So just a quick corollary to that, then would you say that global brands and brands which can be pitched at a premium are able to leverage brand purpose, in the right ways? Like, the Colin Kaepernick example, I think is actually quite brilliant because it is very much in the space of sports. But on the other hand, Pepsi and what they did with Kendall Jenner getting into this whole police protest and Pepsi trying to play the role of a mediator kind of thing, sort of bombed completely, right? So is it that, international brands are able to do it? And the reason I'm asking is I'm based in India. And, here, of course, there are many international brands and doing extremely well. but this is also a market that is very value and price driven, right? And value goes beyond price, I fully agree, but it is very much driven by what do I get out of this on a daily basis for the money that I pay. So is brand purpose more relevant for these large brands and perhaps less for medium-sized brands that are just trying to get a job done for the consumer and do it well?
I think it probably depends on how you're defining purpose in that case, but I don't think that I wouldn't say that it is primarily for global brands or large brands. Like if you think of examples from India, there's so many brands which are uh, uh, Indian origin brands. For example, Himalaya, right? When they entered into this space, the whole story that they were telling around Ayurvedic concepts, and then subsequently getting into toiletries and becoming, one of the household brands. There was so much that they were able to add in terms of the story. It's not just beyond products and um, talking about the natural heritage in a way, but also more around a brand that really cares for consumers' skin, for example. So Himalaya was able to really offer that. It's not an international brand in the context of India. It is a brand that came quite late to that party, or became big quite late in, let's say, in the years of 2000s and so on, if I'm not wrong. But it then became a household name because people associated with their story. So I wouldn't say it's so much for the global brands, but I think it's about how you tell your story.
And I guess also the values that you profess, you're an exemplar for certain values, and if you're able to demonstrate those values through your product, the way you price it, the way you position it, the kinds of issues that you align with, that is what comprises brand purpose, isn't it? I mean, in some ways.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Very well said there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for the input.
Okay.
Thanks, Anurag. Thanks, Divya, and also Chui Win for the questions. Anurag, we don't have any more questions right now. So I think we would like to end the session right on time, just 2 minutes before time, so which is very good for all of us. Thanks, Anurag, for doing this session. Very interesting. And I think a lot of people had questions, which is also good usually. That means that people were interested. Yeah. So thanks again. Thanks everyone else also for joining.
Thank you.
Have a nice.
Thank you for the opportunity as well, Sanchita.
Thanks a lot.
Good luck. Thank you. Bye, everyone.